Are you an artist who wants to get their art out there into people's hands, but you don't have a strong social media presence? I had these same questions when I got started as an independent artist a year and a half ago. So here are ways to get your art out there in the community without using social media. The first step is to have a product. I spent a number of months working on making comics and zines, but this definitely works for any type of art. Like if you make buttons or pins or prints or like little clay creatures or whatever, like just tweak this advice towards your medium to find where it goes. The next step is to then find where you want your art to be and where your audience is at. So I make comics and zines, so I wanted to have my artwork be in comic book stores and in local bookstores and stuff like that. To do that, it's a process called consignment. And that's how, you could be going down a bunch of local shops on your street and you're seeing the same artist's work in like 2 or 3 of these stores. And you're like, wow, they must be really famous. That's why they're in the store. Or like, did the store reach out to them to be put into the store because they're just that good? And like, how do I get into the store? Like, I'm not that good. I don't have that social media presence. Like, how are they going to find me? How do I show up in the store? Not to be a boomer about this, but you literally ask them. It's really scary. It's really, really scary. And I will chicken out all the time. What I do is I usually go into a store. If it's like my local store that I know and go to often, I kind of know the vibes. But if I'm branching out a little, I might investigate a little more. But usually I try to find a place in the store where I feel like my product belongs. If it's a comic book store, that's easy. They usually have a zine section. But in like a local bookstore that doesn't really carry comics, I have to do a little more investigating. So I try to find an area where they sell local zines. And sometimes in like a small, like independent bookstore, they'll have a whole section where they sell that type of thing. And then you're like, cool, check, they accept these. And then you just go up to the register and you're like, hey, do you accept zines from local artists? And you'll get like a mixture of responses. A lot of the times they'll be like, yeah, of course, let me pull out the paperwork, and you get started right there. And sometimes they'll say like, oh, the person who usually handles this isn't here right now, or you need to email their manager. So then you've got to do like a few extra steps and talk to a few more people. But usually then it's a yes and you get in. And then sometimes they'll just say like, no, sorry, we don't do that. Or they'll be a little confused. But the worst thing they can say is no, and then you just move on. Also, you can call ahead some of these places. If you don't want to like do the effort into going in, sometimes you could just call or email them before you even go into the store. So if you have the bravery, you can get your art like today into a bunch of your local stores. And it's that easy. A little bit more about this process just so that you know what it is going into it. You want to ask about like consignment is usually what they call it. And generally, from my experience, they will split the profit kind of like 50-50. Some places do like 60-40, so you get 60, they get 40. It depends on how the store runs their program, you know? And then there's 2 different ways that it can go. Either one way is that they pay you up front for your product. So let's say you're bringing them 5 zines because they usually accept around 5, and they will just give you 50% of what that would earn. So like if you charge $10 per book and it's 5 books, then you will get $25. And they just pay it to you up front and you just leave, and it doesn't matter if the books sell or not, you got $25. Hopefully they do sell. But the other way, and I feel like the more common way, is that they will like write down your information and how much that you're charging for the book. And it's your responsibility to check in with them after a few months to see if your books have sold. But also some places that do this more frequently and have like a more robust program for this, like a comic book store might, they've reached out to me when all of my books have sold. So I actually knew right away my books sold out in less than a day. So the next day I was getting a phone call, hey, do you want to bring some more books by? We already sold out of all your books. And that was really exciting and cool. Yeah, and then you can bring more books by and keep the cycle going. Yeah, my experiences with like comics and zines, but I've also consigned like buttons before. So they paid me up front for the buttons, and then yeah, they just had a bunch of buttons in their store, I guess. So you can definitely do this for different things. Like, you know, those like cutesy trinket stores, there's always like 5 of them on every street. If you like make little like keychains or bracelets or pinch pots, you can be going to stores like that and asking. Typically, I don't go to like chain stores. Like I wouldn't go to like Barnes and Nobles and try this, but if you do, let me know how it goes. I think this mostly just works for local places though. And also, like, if you have friends who live in different cities, you can totally like have them bring stuff to their local store on your behalf. Definitely make sure it's somebody that you trust, but it's another way to get reach with your material. And then soon you'll be the person that people are like, wow, this person is everywhere. They must be really good. Yeah, a lot of people who are everywhere, they are really good, but there is like this certain level of illusion to you're seeing this work a lot in an established store, and it gives it value that you might not have when you're just like existing on the internet. So yeah, all of that, consignment, local shops, that's one way. And another way that I've recently been trying is getting artwork into galleries. So this is really good if you do like prints or like paintings or just like a flat artwork. But also I'm sure they have this for sculptural work too. And I've seen some people in the galleries, like they do like a flat canvas and then they sculpt coming off of the canvas. So as long as it's something that can be hung on a wall, then I think this definitely applies to this. You might need to do a little social media for this one. I know, I'm sorry, but this is not about having followers. This is just about like being aware of events that are happening in your area. I've been finding out lately about a lot of different like art galleries, and they're not really like fancy art galleries. They're just like, oh, this coffee shop is having an art gallery this month, or this like comic book store is doing this gallery for Pride. Most of the time, it's just like a Google spreadsheet or like a Google form, and you just put in your information and they're like, cool, you're in, no questions asked, just like bring your piece by the shop or mail it to us. So you could be doing this not just local, you can have more reach, you can be doing this like across the country as long as your piece is like mailable and they do that for their gallery. And then, yeah, your piece gets to be like on the wall with a bunch of other artists' pieces. And that's serious business, you know, like you're in a gallery just like that, and pieces sell. Like that's the point of the gallery, is you can like price your piece and people buy it, and then the gallery, like the coffee shop or whoever that's having the gallery, does the same thing as consignment, where they like split with you and they give you money. In my experience, the galleries do a more favorable split. Like usually for consignment, it's 50-50, but both galleries I've been in have been 60-40. So I got 60%, which is pretty good. And then you also have to like be careful when you're doing it, because there's other fees. Like you have to take, when you price your work for the gallery, like take into consideration, like, did I have to buy a frame? Did I have to mail it? Like how much percent is the shop taking? You know, and then that's how you can accurately price your piece. But don't lowball yourself, you know, like there's going to be other people in the gallery pricing their work like for hundreds of dollars. So definitely price your piece to what you truly believe it's worth, for your time, for your expertise, for the materials you used, for the effort, all of that stuff. Like don't be afraid to sell your piece for what it's worth. It very well could sell, and then you'll get paid like a real artist, and that's super cool. So yeah, that's another way. My third way is not very lucrative. It's definitely like an exposure and for fun sort of way. But it is really fun. And like, if you don't have a big following on social media, this isn't gonna like boost you overnight, but you might gain like a handful of followers or meet more people in the community that you can just become friends with or just be familiar with. And it's just a little rewarding to be a part of this. So this option is to participate in zines. And I don't mean like making your own zine, which is fun and cool. But I mean like participating in submissions for other people's zines. So there's a lot of zines and magazines out there for local communities, like where you live, and you can even sometimes apply for ones that are more, have like a larger opening, like they're accepting submissions from wherever. And generally you make a piece that will be on like one page of the magazine, and they collect a bunch and you can get in, and then they'll print it, and like people will buy the magazine, or they'll like hand them out, or however this magazine is distributed, your work will be in it and a lot of people will see it. And that's just really fun. I've participated in a few. I got rejected from a few, so that's normal. This is really fun, especially like if you're a writer, because there's a lot of like writing zines and magazines. So if your art form like isn't so physical, like you just make comics, so like maybe you can make a single page comic for this zine, or like you just want to do an illustration or a collage or write a poem, like these are really good ways to get in. And like even if you do something that's like sculptural, you could probably like take a nice photograph of it or edit it in a fun way, do some like multimedia sort of thing and submit that to the zine. And I think that's really exciting. Also, I kind of get the impression that some of these like zines and magazines that hold submissions, if they're not like comic exclusive, I feel like they probably get a lot of written submissions, and then like an art piece is like a really exciting thing to put in the magazine to add some like visual interest. Just kind of like in my experience and seeing how the like magazines come out, I'm like flipping through and there's like a lot of text. So it's like a good chance to get your stuff just kind of like shared around locally. And again, it's mostly just for fun. Like you're not really gonna get any money out of this unless they're offering to pay you. It's just for fun, and then you get to have a real printed thing with your art in it, which is also cool if you're not like often printing your own work. Like if you're mostly a digital artist, this is like a really cool way to have like your stuff physically in your hands. And then one more way, while we're talking about not lucrative options, is if you make books, written or graphic novel or comic or whatever, or zines, a cool way to get your art out there, but again, not lucrative, is you can donate it to your local library. So the library near me has like a really big like zine collection. So I was able to bring a copy of like all of my comics and zines that I've made and donate them to the library. And now they're there and anybody can read them and access them. And that's just super cool. Like I don't know if anybody has read them yet, but it makes me feel really cool that they are there. And like, especially the zine medium is supposed to be like super community based and really just about like sharing information and sharing stories and stuff. And like I have to make a living, so I have to like charge money for my books. But I really like that there is a free option out there, like for somebody to stumble across, or somebody like couldn't afford to pay for a book, that they could read it at the library. So I really like that. So you should definitely consider donating some of your zines and comics to the library if you have some to spare. And then aside from having like an online store or using a storefront like Etsy, which like can bring in traffic just from like online traffic and stuff and like your tags on it, that still feels kind of social media-y to me. And I feel like you have to have some sort of social media presence to like generally direct people there, even though like Etsy's foot traffic will get you someplace. I'm not going to talk about those too much, but those are options, another way to get your art in people's hands. But the last option that I'm going to talk about is tabling. I'm still pretty new to tabling. When this video comes out, I will have gone to San Francisco Zine Fest, which will be probably the biggest event that I will have done with my independent art. I did like an artist alley at MetroCon like in college. That was a really big event, but more recently I've been doing kind of these smaller tabling events. So yeah, this is just a great way to meet people and like physically talk to strangers about your art and hand out business cards, and maybe they will follow you online. And also usually these events will like promo your social media. And again, you're not going to get like a ton of followers from this, but you don't have to like have a ton out the gate to do this. It'll just like help you grow in all directions and like make connections with real life people in the flesh. Tabling doesn't have to be expensive. I know that there's like a lot of pressure to have a really beautiful table with like all these different stands to like prop your art up on and like pay money for like a custom decal tablecloth and all of that stuff. And like, yeah, there's definitely like techniques that you can use to like beautify your booth to boost sales and stuff. If your goal is to generally just be out there with the people and presenting your art and building confidence and building a community, you don't need all the bells and whistles. You just need a fold-out table, which, I don't know, you might be able to thrift. And some places provide the table for you. I've had that happen. But I got my own table on Amazon for $30, which isn't too bad. And I just got like a really small one. Like generally fold-out tables are like 6 feet or something. I only got a 3 feet one, like a really tiny one, because I don't have a lot of merchandise yet. I'm still starting out. So it's kind of better to have a smaller table that looks full than like a really big empty table. So yeah, just get yourself a tiny table. You can use like a blanket or just like cloth that you have laying around, like anything as a tablecloth. Like you can get an actual tablecloth, but we had some like leftover costume fabric and I used that as a tablecloth. And we used just like bins and containers and like a cookbook stand and stuff that we had like around the house. So I didn't buy anything for my table display. Yeah, and then you just like show up and you put your stuff on the table. Okay, that's simplifying it a lot. You have to find out about the events first. Same thing as the gallery kind of thing, is that like you have to be active on social media potentially to find the events. But if you're following a lot of local artists, then they're often posting about it. And if you find kind of like an event that you've been to, like just as an attendee, that you've like just walked around and been like, oh, this is a fun event, I'd like the table here next year. Following that account online or signing up for their newsletter is like a really good way to find out about other related events. I found out about a lot of other events that I've been to now because I follow like the Bay Area Queer Zine Fest account or whatever. And then also when it comes time to apply to the event that you like, they will be posting about it. So then you can apply the next year. So if you ever like go to an event for fun and you're like, this is cool, I want to be here, just follow up. Try to see when it's happening next. Some events are monthly, some are yearly. And by doing more and more events, you'll meet people and you'll be tipped off to other events that are similar. Like a good time to look is like if you like belong to a community, like I'm queer, so for Pride Month there was like a ton of events going on for Pride Month and everybody was talking about it. So I was more easily able to find events during that month and leading up to that month to sign up for them. So if you have like a month that goes with who you are as a person and what your art represents, you might be able to find events that are celebrating those things and sign up to participate in them. It does take a bit of bravery to table. I'm a really anxious person, so I'm super nervous up to the event and like setting up my table and sitting in anticipation for the customers to arrive. But it has been really fun so far, and I definitely want to continue doing it because I think it's good for me as an artist to put myself out there and meet people who are interested in my work. And if you're not like 100% sure who your audience is, like you sort of have an idea, but you really want to know like who likes my work, who am I attracting with my work, go table. Because you will see who comes to your table and who gets excited. And also it's like a good way to see which of your products are like drawing people in, and maybe like a way for you to adjust your work if you're really like meaning to like make a business out of this. So like there's a lot of really like good things about tabling. One con about it, which is like a price thing, is some tabling events charge you a fee. And I've been really lucky. The first two that I've been to, like they didn't charge me anything. One of them was like a sliding scale and it was my first event. And I was not making a lot of money at the time. So I was like, please let me do this for free. I don't even know if I'm going to sell anything. So that was no tabling fee for my first event. And even if I did pay on the sliding scale, it wouldn't have been more than like 20 bucks. I think that was the max. And odds are you'll probably sell more than 20 bucks of stuff. I hope so. Good luck. And then my second event, the tabling fee was $30, but the owner of the store wanted some stuff. So they were like, I will trade you table fee for these comics. And I was like, yes. So then, like, I guess it's technically not free, but I also didn't have to pay the table fee for that one. But like, the bigger the event, the more expensive it is. So I'm tabling, or will have tabled, at San Francisco Zine Fest. And that table fee was 50 bucks, but it's like a really big event. And I'm getting like a half table. So if you got like a full table, which like half table is kind of like what I've been working with, like 3 feet, and then like a full table is like the 6-foot whole table, that's more expensive. But yeah, if you're sticking like smaller local events, it could definitely be an affordable option and really fun. Like, you'll start seeing like a lot of artists in the area are going to the same events. So then you could be friends with them and stuff. Like, I'm still working on that part. Like, I'm a little shy and nervous, but everybody's super sweet and cool. So yeah, those are all the ways that I've been exploring recently to get my art in people's hands without social media. Thanks for watching, and good luck getting your art out there. I know that you can do it. It's just, it takes a bit of bravery and believing in yourself, because your art is good and it's worth being seen by the world. So be brave. You've got this. And I'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye.